She told me. This could end badly. I replied, then let it be worth everything. The first time she brushed past me, it felt like an accident, until her hand stayed a heartbeat longer on my sleeve than it needed to. In the muted glow of the cafe's closing hour, the room had emptied to just the two of us and the barista stacking chairs. Her perfume hung soft in the air, something dry and citrus, mixed with a note I couldn't name but couldn't stop noticing. She was seated across from me, one leg crossed over the other, a pen between her fingers she never quite used. 40-something, though the number seemed absurd next to her presence. Her hair, dark with a streak of silver at the temple, slid over her shoulder when she tilted her head. Every move was deliberate, as if she'd lived long enough to be done with fidgeting. And yet there was a tension at her wrist, a pulse beneath her skin I could see when she reached for her glass. I was 23, there on borrowed time, pretending to read a script for work. But mostly I was watching her, the way she scanned the empty room, the small crease between her eyebrows when she thought no one was looking. She caught me staring once. Instead of looking away, she held my eyes for a second too long. It felt like someone had opened a door to a warm room I wasn't supposed to enter. "You're quiet," she said at last, her voice lower than the music on the speakers. "Are you always this quiet, or just now?" "I listen better than I talk," I said. My throat felt dry. I pressed my palm flat on the table to keep from tapping. A small smile tugged at her mouth, not quite reaching her eyes. "Good. Most men your age don't listen at all." Her glass was empty. She tipped it, watching the last drops circle the bottom. I wanted to ask her name, but couldn't find a way to make it sound like a question and not a plea. Instead, I reached for the sugar packet she'd been twisting and set it aside before it tore. Our fingers touched. Her skin was warm. Her nails unpainted but neat. She didn't pull back right away. "You shouldn't," she murmured, almost to herself. Then, louder, "This could end badly." My laugh came out softer than I meant. "Then let it be worth everything." She finally looked at me fully, eyes darker than I'd imagined. Something flickered there, warning, maybe, or recognition. She leaned back slightly, breaking the contact, but her knee brushed mine under the table, just once, as if by mistake. Outside, a bus hissed to a stop, headlights sweeping across the window. She glanced at the door, then at me, as if weighing something. Her hand hovered over her phone, then dropped. Silence stretched between us, the kind that feels like a held breath. I opened my mouth to ask her anything, her name, her story, but before I could, the door swung open with a rush of cold night air and a voice called from the counter. "We're closing now." She stood up, slow, graceful, and for a moment I thought she'd leave without another word. Instead, she looked over her shoulder at me, eyes holding mine as if waiting to see if I'd follow. And then she walked toward the door. She didn't tell me her name until the second time we met. A week later, same cafe, different hour. She was already at the counter when I walked in, no accident. Her coat was draped over her arm, scarf still around her neck though the room was warm. "Coffee?" I asked, hovering a step behind her. She half turned, a flash of recognition softening her face. "Black. No sugar." Then, after a beat, "And it's Claire." I said her name under my breath as we moved to the table by the window. She didn't comment, but a tiny crease appeared at the corner of her mouth, like she'd heard it anyway. We talked in fragments, never a full story at once. I learned she had a daughter at university, an apartment she mostly lived in alone, and a job in the arts that demanded charm she no longer felt like spending. She didn't ask my age outright, but when I mentioned finishing grad school, her eyebrow lifted just slightly. "That explains it," she murmured. "What?" "The way you look at everything. Like you're still deciding if it's real." I wanted to tell her I wasn't looking at everything, only at her. The way her hand held her cup, fingers curved in a kind of practiced elegance, the small vein at her temple pulsing when she concentrated, the way her hair brushed my knuckles when she leaned close to show me something on her phone. Instead, I looked down at my mug. "Is that bad?" "No." She shifted in her seat, scarf sliding off her shoulder, revealing the pale skin of her collarbone. "It's just dangerous." The word hung there. She caught herself, eyes darting to the window. Outside, rain pressed against the glass in thin silver lines. Inside, the air smelled of espresso and wet wool. I thought about asking why it was dangerous, but didn't. She'd only retreat further. Instead, I told her about my last relationship, Someone my own age, someone who had left for a job in another city. Claire listened without interrupting, tracing a circle on the table with one fingertip. I'm not good at lasting things, she said finally. People expect you to know yourself by a certain age. But sometimes all you know is what you're tired of. Her voice was low enough I had to lean in to hear. My sleeve brushed hers. She didn't move away. A moment later, her hand landed lightly on my shoulder, as if steadying herself. The weight of it was both nothing and everything. Warm, precise, a question she wasn't asking out loud. I looked up. She was close enough that her breath brushed my cheek when she spoke. You should be careful with me. I am, I whispered. My hand almost reached for hers, then stopped midair. She noticed. Her eyes softened, a small, private flicker of something like relief or surrender. For a heartbeat, neither of us moved. Then she let her fingers slide, just barely, down my arm before pulling back, leaving a trail of heat where her hand had been. The rain outside thickened, blurring the streetlights. Inside, we sat facing each other, the quiet between us charged, a single question hanging in the air neither of us wanted to answer first. It was late enough that the cafe lights had dimmed to a sleepy glow. Only a handful of customers lingered, bent over laptops or phones. We'd taken the back corner again, our small island. Claire sat angled toward me, scarf draped on the chair this time, hair loose and damp from a sudden drizzle outside. Her fingertips traced the rim of her cup while she talked about a gallery opening she'd attended alone. She didn't mention who else might have been there. Sometimes I think I go just to prove I still can, she said. I tried to answer, but my phone buzzed on the table, a friend's name lighting the screen. I flipped it over, face down. She noticed. Her eyes flickered, a quick dart of curiosity she didn't voice. Someone waiting for you? She asked. No, I said too quickly. No one important. A small silence opened between us. Her hand paused on the cup. Mine drifted closer without thinking. We didn't touch, but the gap had shrunk to inches. Across the room, the door jingled. A tall man in a dark coat stepped inside, shaking off rain. He looked around once. Claire stiffened almost imperceptibly. She reached for her scarf, twisting it between her hands like a rope. You okay? I asked. Fine. Just thought I knew him. Her voice was level but thin. The man ordered coffee to go and left. She exhaled slowly, eyes still on the door. I caught the faint tremor in her fingers before she steadied them on her lap. Sometimes I wonder what we're doing, she murmured. I know. My voice came out low, almost hoarse. But I can't stop. She finally looked at me. The world outside the window blurred. Rain, headlights, streaks of movement. But inside the air thickened, slower. Her knee brushed mine under the table and stayed there. I leaned forward a little. She mirrored me without seeming to. Mean to. Our heads bent toward each other as if drawn by gravity. Her hair grazed my cheek. My breath hitched. Hers caught halfway through a sentence and never finished. I started, but the word dissolved. Her lips parted just slightly, as if about to say my name. Her hand rose from her lap and hovered near my face, stopping short of my jaw. For a second, the noise of the cafe fell away. The hum of the fridge, the hiss of the espresso machine, and there was only the warmth of her skin close to mine. Then her phone vibrated on the table. The sound made her flinch. She snatched it up, glanced at the screen, and set it face down without answering. We stayed as we were, inches apart. Her palms slid down to the table, and, with a hesitation that felt like surrender, she laid it flat over mine. No words, no smile. Just the weight of her hand, warm and deliberate. The space between us vanished, though the kiss never came. We sat like that, caught, resisting, drawn closer than either of us had meant, while the rain hammered harder against the glass. The next time we met, it wasn't at the cafe. She'd texted an address. No explanation, just a street name near the river. Evening air had gone cool and smelled of wet stone. I found her leaning against a low railing by the water, coat pulled tight. Street lamps threw halos on the pavement. I almost didn't come, she said before I reached her. Her voice wavered, then steadied. It's starting to feel like something I can't control. I stopped a foot away. Then tell me to go. She didn't. Instead, she turned to face me fully. The wind lifted her hair across her cheek. Without thinking, I reached to tuck the strand behind her ear. My fingers brushed the edge of her jaw. She inhaled sharply but didn't step back. Do you know what people would say? She asked quietly. About the age, about me. I don't care, I said. It came out rougher than I meant. Her eyes flickered, part anger, part fear. You should. I care. She pressed a hand against her own chest, as if to still something there. I've built a life that doesn't allow for this. The word hung between us. I stepped closer anyway. Her back met the railing. My hand found her sleeve, sliding down until our fingers met. She didn't pull away. Her breath came fast, visible in the cool air. I keep thinking about you, I said, low near her ear. Even when I try not to. She closed her eyes. You don't understand how dangerous that is for me. I'm trying to. My thumb moved, a slow stroke against her wrist. Her head tilted forward until her forehead almost touched mine. We were breathing the same air now, our words small clouds. She opened her eyes, and I saw something break there, a mixture of hunger and terror. I'm jealous, she whispered suddenly. Jealous of how easy this must be for you. Of your age. Of your freedom. I hate myself for it. You think it's easy? I murmured back. I'm shaking right now. I slid my other hand to the back of her neck, just resting there, not pulling her closer, though every nerve wanted to. Her hair was cool from the damp air, but warm underneath. She let out a shuddering breath and leaned into my palm. Only an inch, but enough to feel the weight of her. Say something, I begged. She looked at me, eyes wide, and for a moment her lips parted as if to confess everything, to step across whatever line she'd drawn. My heart pounded. The river hissed below, the city blurred to a hum. Then footsteps clicked on the pavement behind us. Someone approaching. She stiffened, her hands pressing lightly against my chest, not to push but to hold me there. Not here, she whispered, voice trembling. But don't move yet. We stayed like that, faces almost touching, caught between retreat and the kiss that hovered like a storm about to break. We met in the same spot by the river a week later. This time she looked tired, almost brittle, hair pinned up hastily, eyes ringed faintly. She didn't touch the railing. She stood apart from it, as if needing distance from everything. I have to tell you something, she said before I could speak. Her voice was flat, too even. I haven't been honest. The wind pushed at my coat. About what? She glanced past me toward the path. No one else was there, only the sound of water slapping against the stone embankment. She swallowed hard, fingers knotting together. You remember that man in the cafe? She asked. The one I said I thought I knew? I nodded. That was my ex-husband. She looked at me then, eyes sharp, as if daring me to judge. He saw us. He didn't speak, but he saw. And now he's been calling, leaving messages. He knows something's happening, even if I've said nothing. The words hit like cold rain. For a moment I couldn't move. Why didn't you tell me? Because it was easier to pretend we were invisible, she said. Her hands trembled, and she pressed them to her sides. But we're not. We never were. I stepped toward her, but she backed up a pace, almost colliding with the railing. The motion wasn't rejection, it was self-defense. Her breath came shallow. I should walk away, she whispered. Before it explodes. Before my daughter hears, before. Don't, I said. My voice cracked. Don't walk away. She shook her head, but when I reached out, my fingers brushed the back of her hand. The touch jolted her. She exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for days. This isn't fair to you, she said. It's not fair to either of us, I answered. My thumb grazed her knuckle, slow, tentative. Her eyes closed at the contact. A low gust of wind lifted a strand of hair across her face. Without thinking, I reached to move it. My palm hovered near her cheek. She leaned into it for the smallest fraction of a second before pulling back, leaving the warmth behind. I keep saying no, she murmured, voice shaking. But my body doesn't listen. She stepped closer then, so close our coats brushed, her scent all citrus and rain. Her hands hovered at my chest. Not pushing this time, but trembling as if they wanted to draw me in. I've made a mess, she said. But if I go any further, there's no going back. My heart thudded so loudly I thought she could hear it. Then choose, I whispered. Right now. She looked up, eyes bright with something between fear and resolve, and slid her fingers between mine. An answer without words. Somewhere behind us, a phone vibrated in her pocket. She ignored it. They met again at night, in the narrow stairwell of her building. Rainwater clung to their coats. The hallway light flickered. Claire had texted nothing but an apartment number. When he arrived, she was already standing halfway down the stairs, one hand on the rail, The other pressed to her forehead, as though steadying herself. "You came," she said softly. "I didn't know if I should," he answered. His voice felt too loud in the hush of the stairwell. But I couldn't stay away. She closed the distance by a single step. They were level now, almost face to face. The warm scent of her hair mixed with the damp smell of rain and paint peeling from the walls. "I keep thinking," she murmured, "if I just stop answering, this will fade. But it doesn't. It's worse when I try." He reached up, fingertips brushing a strand of hair off her temple. She didn't move. Her breath came shallow, brushing his neck. The rail creaked under her tightening grip. "I don't want to wreck your life," she whispered. "And I don't want to keep watching you leave." His thumb rested against her cheek. "So what do we do?" She closed her eyes. "We decide." Silence filled the stairwell. Their coats were touching now, the static of wet fabric a faint crackle between them. He could feel her pulse through the thin skin of her wrist when he took her hand. "Look at me," he said. She did. Whatever she'd been hiding, fear, shame, desire, was there, unmasked. Her lips parted, not yet a kiss, but an invitation or a plea. "I'm terrified," she admitted. "But I'm even more tired of pretending I'm not alive." He leaned in until his forehead rested against hers. The small contact felt like the breaking of a dam. She let out a sound, half sigh, half laugh, that trembled against his mouth. "This is your last chance to walk away," she whispered. "No," he said. "It's our first chance to stop walking away." Her hands rose, shaking, to his chest. For a moment they stayed there, both of them trembling, the stairwell spinning small with the weight of the choice. Then she slid her palms up to his shoulders, pulling herself closer, not a full embrace yet, but enough that their bodies aligned, coats pressed, the damp chill turning to warmth between them. They didn't speak. The decision had already been made in the way she leaned into him, in the way he held her wrists but not to stop her. The distance between their mouths was a breath, the air thick with everything they'd been holding back. "I see you," she said finally. "And I see you," he answered. In that narrow stairwell, with rain running down the windows and the world waiting outside, they stood together, no longer guessing, no longer half-hidden, knowing exactly what they had chosen and what it would cost. Morning light spilled across her living room like pale gold. The night's storm had passed. The air through the cracked window smelled of wet leaves and city stone warming in the sun. Claire sat curled on the couch in a sweater, mug in her hands, hair loose around her shoulders. I stood for a moment in the doorway, unsure if I was allowed to enter this new, unhidden version of her life. She looked up and smiled, not the guarded half-smile from the cafe, but something small and real. "You're still here," she said. "I didn't want to leave." My voice came out rough with sleep. She set the mug down and patted the cushion beside her. "Then don't." I crossed the room. The carpet was soft under my socks. Her scent, citrus and rain, still clung to the air. Sitting down felt like stepping into a quiet current. We didn't rush to fill it with words. Instead, she reached for my hand. Our fingers fit together easily, no tremor this time. Her thumb moved once across my knuckles, like an unspoken promise. "I was scared of this," she said at last, eyes on our joined hands. "The age, the talk, the mess it could make. But when you showed up last night," she stopped, swallowed, tried again. "I realized I was tired of living in fear of myself." I exhaled, tension draining from my shoulders. "I was scared too. Of pushing you. Of ruining something I didn't even have yet." Her laugh was soft, almost shy. "You didn't ruin anything." She leaned in until her temple rested against my cheek. The weight of her was warm and steady. "You reminded me what it feels like to be awake." We stayed like that, quiet, the morning sounds of the street drifting up from below, buses, a dog barking, a child's voice. She shifted to face me and slid her arms around my waist. It wasn't dramatic, just a long, human hug that seemed to fold the weeks of tension into one steady breath. When she pulled back, she pressed her forehead to mine. "This isn't going to be simple," she said. "But it's ours." "It's ours," I echoed. She smiled again, eyes bright. Then she kissed me once, not hurried, not hidden, just a light press of lips like sealing a decision. When she drew back, her fingers stayed threaded through mine. We sat there together on the couch, hands intertwined, her head on my shoulder, sunlight warming the room. The fears hadn't vanished, but they'd shifted, no longer walls between us, just shadows at the edge of something real. After a while she whispered, almost playful, "Coffee's getting cold." "I'll make more," I said. I didn't move. Neither did she. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?